Thank you so much. And thank you for being here, Liz, this evening. Our senior
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Really appreciate it. So then we'll do groups. We'll group the questions and comments, starting with traffic, then about the units, about the affordable housing, the size of the units, the number of units. Then we'll talk about the architecture, the design, the height. And then the next topic, there were 6 that we worked on. The next topic being management of the building, and then the ground floor occupancy, retail space, and then finally construction and all that will be involved during the construction period. So we'll group it like that, the questions and comments. So everybody will have a chance to ask questions or comments on each of those items. And then we will give them a chance to answer. So as soon as the Horizon team is ready, and Jonathan Nuzma, Councilmember Nuzma, do you want to add anything to that?
Hi, everybody. Jonathan Newsom here, council member for the 4th Ward, which the extent of which goes across the street from this development. So the proposed development is in Councilmember Kelly's 1st Ward. I am here because plenty of my residents across the street are affected as well. So happy to be a part of this. And I will just kind of listen and lurk in the background.
Thank you for being here, Councilmember Nuzma. Okay, so let's see. So again, I will ask you to group your questions accordingly. And Jeff, if your team is here, let me know. And then you'll have Elizabeth, if you can let them share their screen, that would be great.
Yeah, Claire, I'm still waiting. I'm sorry, there's 2 links
right.
sent apparently, so we've just been circulating the correct one.
Okay, no problem. So I don't know right now if there's any general topics with our staff that's with us, Liz. I don't know if you want to entertain any questions kind of that aren't specific to this, necessarily specific, or maybe that could come before the presentation.
Sure, I'm happy to go off the cuff and talk about all the amazing work that the city of Evanston is on. I think most of you, I'm hopeful, have heard about the Envision Evanston 2045 initiative that the city's been working on for about a year now. And moving forward, I just want to put a plug out that later this week, we will be sending out an online questionnaire for folks to participate in. This questionnaire is consistent with some of the recent focus group sessions that were held at the Evanston Public Library. So it's just another opportunity to provide feedback into the formation of that really important planning process. Envision Evanston includes a rewrite of the city's 20-year comprehensive plan. So it establishes a vision for how the community, the values and the goals that want to be accomplished over the 20-year time horizon. It also includes rewriting the city's zoning ordinance in its entirety. So it's a really, really important initiative. And so if you have not participated up until this point, I do encourage you to take a look at that. And then also, if you're interested in learning more, you can go to envisionevanston2045.com and visit that. I'll drop a link in the chat just so you can stay up to date with that. And with that, I'm going to end my impromptu sales pitch on Envision Evanston. And it looks like Michael has joined, so I will make him a co-host so he can start sharing his screen.
Right. Thank you, Liz. And everyone is here. So from our team, I'm just making sure, is Michael Worthman here? Not sure.
I think we're still missing Michael Worthman. Michael.
Okay. And you sent him the link. I sent him the link as well. I think he was having trouble logging in. And Jonathan's here and you're here, so that's good. Hopefully Michael will be able to join. Do you want to I'll start to share. I'll start the process, and Jeff, if you can make sure that he has the link, that would be great.
Great.
Okay, great, terrific. So before we started, I just wanted to thank Claire Kelly and Jonathan Newsma, the Alder people for obviously Alderman Kelly this is the first ward. This has been done in cooperation with the first and fourth wards. I know that Alderman Newsma has been helpful because the location of this project is, immediately adjacent. I wanted to also start by saying that in terms of just flow, so that we can do this in a good orderly way, there's at the bottom of everyone's screen is a chat. There's a chat button, and if
I did go
people
over
could, you did go over that. If people can, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I went over how we'd group the questions, and that it'd be preferable if they could write them. They're welcome, though, to also raise their hand.
Terrific, thank you, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people put their meetings at their comments in the chat, I'll read every single question. We'll go through every single one of them, and we want to make sure that everyone's questions get answered. There's 63 people on here, so we certainly want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to have their questions heard. So that'll be the best way to do it for sure. Thank you very much, Alderman Kelly. So now, before I share my screen and get into the presentation, I just wanted to say that, we were before you on August 7th, and some of the concerns that we heard were about current conditions actually in the alley behind the project, and actions speaking louder than words. I just wanted to let everyone know that, the team and the city are listening, and we've had a meeting about 10 days after that. We all met in the alley with the city engineers, city staff, Alderman Kelly and Newsma, and our project team, to talk about our alley management plan and ways that we could improve the alley situation, and the city folks were on board and feeling positive about this. So I guess my point is, if the project can be a catalyst or the impetus for fixing some of these things and improving conditions, that's terrific. Certainly, we feel like the project would only improve the situation. And so with that, let us do a quick presentation, and then we'll get to every question. And I see that, for example,
Michael, can you just introduce, tell us who you are with relationship?
Sure. I'm sorry about that. You're right. I jumped in sort of late. So thank you. My name is Michael Esger. I'm the zoning attorney for the project for Horizon Realty. And with us today is the project team. I think we have Jeff Michael. We have and the Michael family, who also own the Marion next door. We have Tim Kent from Papa George Hames, the architect for the project. And Michael Worthman is our traffic engineer from KLOA. And Michael has studied traffic all around the area for the project multiple times over several years. And then we have Jonathan Perman, who has helped as a consultant with economic analysis as well. So that's our project team. And you'll hear from each of us as we respond to questions. With that, I'll share my screen, and we can start the presentation. I'll sort of kick it off here. And so 1621 to 31 West Chicago Avenue. I think we're located on the east side of Chicago Avenue between Church and Davis Streets. And here's a closer up aerial of the site. It is currently consists of 7 commercial spaces. They're now vacant. It's been there for quite some time. The spaces are outdated, obsolete, so they're not functioning well for what modern restaurants and retailers want. So this is an opportunity to redevelop the site into something that's more productive. Again, the proposed project is to have first floor commercial space approximately 7,000 feet. there would be 2 levels of parking and then 110 units. Here's an aerial. One of the issues is, the context of our project and how it fits into the existing framework of the downtown. You can see the project here on Chicago Avenue. This is an aerial looking obviously southeast. This shows us some of the heights of the buildings. There's buildings obviously much taller to the west of us. Right across the street is the Park Evanston. And then there's some buildings of our size, slightly taller or about the same size to the east of us as well. And we're measuring these things to maximum height. And of course, zoning height is a little bit less than that, but this is how we fit in to the context looking southeast. Now we're looking west, slightly northwest. You can see our building here, the Legacy, in context, and this again gives you a good perspective of context and perspectives and how we would fit in to the area. Here's just a zoomed out view. I think this perspective really helps to clarify again how we appear, how we fit in. The building, the Legacy, is here in this gray color across the street of the Park Evanston, and in the background of the Mather buildings over here to the east. And you can see again just different heights, and we thought this was helpful. Certainly, it's been helpful to explain the context and again the significantly reduced height of the current proposal.
If I could just jump in a second, Michael, if you could go back to that slide. This is Jonathan Newsome here. That 601 Davis building.
Yes.
I believe what you're showing there is the previously approved development, which has subsequently expired before construction was initiated. So just adding that context.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Here's a context image looking down the street. This is looking north down Chicago Avenue. You can see the building in the background shaded in. Again, just giving more context image so that people can understand how this reduced size and scope, this project fits into the framework of the street and of the area. Here's a view. We've worked quite a bit and had quite a few communications with the church that's to our east. And this is the existing view looking west through their courtyard. And then, and here's what it looks like with our building is superimposed in that same image. Just again, we're trying to understand context, understand impacts, and we feel like this reduced proposal fits in really well to the area. One of the key features about this area is the transit-oriented nature of the street and of the location. There obviously Evanston is embracing the concept of a transit-served location. We are served by multiple forms of transportation. We're within less than a quarter mile away from the Davis Street. That we have both the CTA and the Metra. We also have 3 different bus lines. And so this is what the city's guidelines refer to as a transit-oriented project. And what that informs about the project is several things. It informs the fact that we have less parking than would otherwise be required. At least that's the request here. We heard at our meeting last time from some that wanted even less parking, some that wanted perhaps more. We felt like this, where we're at with 48 parking spaces for 110 cars, strikes a really good balance. It's embracing the concept of transit-served locations and transit-oriented development, while at the same time not taking that too far right off the bat. We felt like it was a good balance. We also note that there's a parking garage to our north that's underutilized, a city lot, so that helps for those residents that may have cars that only go on the weekends. We also know that we're on a protected bike lane, so bikes have become very popular. Certainly the demographic, we think for people that want to live downtown in urban settings and these kinds of apartments, we're having alternative forms of transportation. So one of the things this project does is provide one-to-one bicycle parking for the residents. So we have 110 bicycle parking spots. And again, we're on these protected bicycle lanes. So that's something that again, the city is looking for, and this is a regional concept, and this project certainly embraces that. There's a number of different transportation features, again, that the bicycle lanes that we're on and the transit served location really sort of informs for us. And if we look at our ground floors or our site plan, you can see again the protected bike lanes. One of the issues is we have loading parking coming off the alley to the rear. Again, that's something that the city would always want. This is a two-way alley. It's a 20-foot alley, which is on the larger side of alleys. That we found out from being in the alley that alleys in Evanston are typically from 16 to 20 feet. We have a 20-foot alley, and we are putting our parking proposing to put the parking off the alley as requested by the city, as well as our loading. We have internal loading for the project, and this is for things like move-ins and move-outs, and our trash, for example, is internal to the building. You can see in all of these back of house features are enclosed within the building. So that's very different than existing conditions where we have 7 different retail commercial storefronts where there's multiple dumpsters and different traffic that's on the exterior of the buildings. We have our lobby entrances and our retail entrances also on the street. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Tim Kent from Papa George to sort of finish talking about the site plan and taking it from here. So Tim, what have I missed on the site plan that's sort of key for your and in your way of thinking?
Well, thanks, Michael, and good evening, everybody. No, I think you've covered quite a bit on the ground floor, and I think from here, what I'll do is I'll walk everyone through how the building is organized. As Michael was saying, we have retail or / restaurant space that's fronting Chicago Avenue. And then the lobby, the main entrance, will be adjacent to that. Again, we're activating, and this is a word that I like to use a lot in these kinds of contexts. We're activating the street wall and the sidewalk here because we're wanting to be very pedestrian friendly. That's very important to this project. And the vehicular access is from the alley, and there's a ramp that leads up to the 2nd floor. You can switch to the next page, please. This shows the sidewalk condition, the landscaping approach that we're taking, and the parking that's going to be in front. So we're creating a loading zone that is in front that will be restricted to 30-minute parking only. And this is really intended to be the place where food deliveries occur, Ubers and Lyfts drop off or pick up, the occasional stop of an Amazon or UPS driver. Those types of things will happen here, and they will not happen in the alley. So that's being reserved for that so that there's plenty of space for that use. The sidewalk is going to be done to the City of Evanston standards. So we're maintaining that. It's really going to just be a simple continuation of everything else that's happening along Chicago Avenue. So there really won't be any kind of disruption to the pedestrian flow, which is very important here. Next, please.
And one thing I just wanted to add to what you were saying, Tim, is there has been some discussions, and when we were in the alley, that and I think Alderman Kelly said this as well, that she'd like to see this reduced even from 30 minutes down to 15 minutes, this standing zone, and that's certainly okay with the project team. The idea here is that as much that the Uber, Lyft, FedEx, those kinds of quick in and out deliveries can happen right from this spot where a truck pulls up, they run in, we have a doorman with 24-hour doorman. The doorman's there, accepts a package, accepts whatever is the delivery of food, a guest pickup. So all of these activities can occur here as opposed to in the alley. So that was sort of a part of the alley mitigation plan. So that I just want to make that point, and I'll move to the next slide.
Great. So this is the second level, and this is the full parking level that we have here. The ramp, as I described, coming from the alley on the right, is now extending through, and this is how vehicles arrive on the second floor where the parking is. And then that ramp continues all the way around to the next level up. On this level, we have 26 parking spaces, along with some additional tenant storage. Let's go to the next, please. And this level of parking is slightly different in that we have 6 apartments that will be facing the street, so that that level, the third floor, is also activated with lights and life and people behind it, as opposed to just cars. So this level has 22 spaces, and we have grand total of 48 cars in the project. And that gives us, with 110 dwelling units, a parking ratio of just under 0.5, actually 0.47. Above this, we have the top of the garage, which is the first full residential floor. And you can see that the shape of the building is more narrow. And we have a mixture of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. And this is typical on every residential floor. Because on this level we are just above the parking garage, we have some flat space that's outside those apartments that can be used for private patios, and also for a green roof area that will be an amenity for the residents off the elevator bank. And then going up, we have the typical tower floor plans. And this is, again, this is typical level. So we have the same unit layouts, studios, 1s and 2s. And then at the very top, we have, yeah, this one right here, thank you. The 12th floor. This is the amenity floor, which is really a half level in terms of the shape of the building. The enclosed area is really just in the middle there, and we'll have a swimming pool and other amenities, along with mechanical space for the building at this level. So in this view, we are seeing a straight elevation. This is looking from the west to the east, looking at the face of this block of Chicago Avenue. On the right half, we see the Marion and the Marion Addition. And then this project is next, going to the left. And then additional buildings that complete the block as you continue further to the left. In the background, we see the Mather beyond, and that gives you some sense of the other buildings that are in the area, the immediate area, through to the east. And so our project has, and you'll see this better in some of the 3-dimensional images in a second, but it's important for us to mix this carefully with the context of the other buildings and maintain and continue to activate. There's that word activate again, the street wall, and continue the pedestrian flow and do something that's very friendly and will encourage people to walk and shop along this stretch. Let's keep going. And so this is a view from the northwest, standing roughly at the entrance to Whole Foods on that corner. And we see how we have this brick base, which again is in keeping with the flavor and character and vocabulary of other buildings, not just on this stretch of Chicago Avenue, but throughout downtown Evanston, where we have a lot of buildings of this scale and this type. And then above that is the residential component, which is a glass mid-rise building. We see that it's sheath-on glass. It really helps that disappear from the rest of the building. We're making a clear distinction architecturally there. And then there are balconies that serve each unit on the sides there. Keep going. This is a view from the southwest. And we see really the same type of treatment with this glass mid-rise building sitting atop a brick podium base. Let's keep going. And this is a little bit more straight on view taken from roughly where the Park Evanston and the ramp that leads up to their parking behind that. And again, we see this brick base, what we call a brick podium base. The first floor is where the retail will be, or restaurant, depending on which retailers are brought in here, and we don't know who those are yet. At the right is where the lobby is, and that's where the residents will enter. And then above that, we're looking at 2 levels, one of which is parking, and the top level of that is those 6 apartments that face out towards Chicago Avenue. So those are blended together visually, and that will really make something that, again, we're thinking very carefully about the scale and materiality of that, and making something that feels appropriate. And then the glass volume of the apartments sits above that. This is a little bit closer at the base. We see the entry where just below where it says 1621, and that's where the lobby will be. And then adjacent to that will be some breakdown of retail spaces, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how the leasing occurs. There's also really one thing I would point out is that the sidewalk is designed to allow for things like sidewalk dining. It's wide enough to accept that, and the required landscaping from the city of Evanston. So we would really hope that there could be some kind of a use here that would encourage that activated street front use. And then these are just individual drawings that show the elevations of the building. And again, I want to just emphasize how we're treating the base of the building in with a different sense of materials from the glass mid-rise residential portion. And these are just views from the side and from the back.
The back view showing the enclosed garage, loading, and trash areas.
That's right. Yeah, the podium there. Let's stick with that for a second. The podium continues through the entire width or the full depth of the property, and as Michael was pointing out earlier, all the dumpsters, all the trash removal and things like that, loading, that will all be handled internally to this and won't be happening in the alley itself. So those are all enclosed within this box-like structure.
And so there is the presentation. We have more images to go with that we'll bring up, but why don't we, but as promised, and if anyone has more, just keep posting. We're seeing all of your posts. I don't want to address them quickly and thoroughly. And if anyone has more to say, obviously let us know. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say to keep it organized if we group the questions.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do that.
What I had suggested was that we start. Are you ready to start taking questions and comments? Okay. So I had suggested
here. Go on. Yeah.
I thought to start with discussion about traffic, parking spaces, the bike lanes, and the alley. And then at the end, we'll talk about the construction. I thought that would be the 6th point, but the first one I thought we could kind of focus on that with regard to parking, traffic, alley, bike lanes, as a first topic.
So globally address all those. So sure.
Well, and specific questions, like Sharon had a question about the parking. Sue has a question here with regard to, someone asked about where will people park for the local businesses there. If you're taking up 3 spaces, are we going to be cutting into parking for the businesses? There's several questions related. I think Sharon, Sue, Lori, Bill Brown, and a few others had questions, Carol Hirsch and Meg.
Sure. Okay, so generally parking for the retail, there could be, and first of all, the retail tenants is not identified yet. We're thinking restaurant, and certainly a restaurant could have a valet. A valet can bring cars just a block, not even a full block, a half a block north. There's a parking garage there. There's street parking is also available, and we're hoping that this and what the whole concept of the transit friendly location is that we're hoping for a lot of pedestrian traffic, and the walkability of Chicago Avenue. This, I think, greatly increases that with landscaping. There is, again, a lot of parking close by, and there can be valet. There's also, in terms of the tenants themselves, obviously there's plenty of parking, we think, for that. And for those, you know, again, there's 110 units. There's 48 parking spots. To the extent that someone comes here and there's no more parking, well, obviously the developer's taking the is making the bet that the market feasibility studies are showing that there's enough people that want to live here that won't have cars. Similarly for the retail, like any other retail, typically if it's a restaurant, there's valet or there's local parking close by.
If you'd like, I could read through sort of a list just to make sure everybody gets questions.
Sure.
So Bill Brown is asking whether you have the details for the alley management plan, not during construction, but post-construction. And let's see, a question, I think wind tunnel is somewhat related to this. Another question regarding,
so let's talk about the alley management plan, because as you know, Alderman, we just worked together to, we did meet again in the alley with the city staff, city engineers, the public works gentlemen, and both Alderman Nusma and Councilmember Kelly as well. And we developed, previously there was an alley management plan put together. This has been revised. There's different parts of the alley management plan. So first of all, and this sort of addresses construction as well. No construction could happen, whether we were before you asking for a planned development, which this is, or if we were doing something by right and rebuilding. In Evanston, you have to have a comprehensive construction management plan. We'll be doing that with the city so that we make sure that, and by the way, we're dealing with a known entity here. The Michael family that reconstructed the addition to the Marion had to do the same thing when they went through that process. So, and this is typical with any construction in the city. We will have a management plan. The alley will not be closed and blocked throughout the construction. It will be, the management plan will be part of the conditions of approval, and it will be properly supervised and managed by the city to make sure that there's access. There's going to be, you know, what remains open. Obviously there's safety concerns and certain things have to be blocked off, but construction will be handled that way. There will be continued access throughout the construction period.
if I may, so it's not, I think folks were hoping to see it this evening, so it's not available.
Well, I'm looking, it's on my screen right now is the management plan. There's also an exhibit showing the different sections of the alley and the financial commitments. So the project is paying as part of this management plan. And I get that it's a lot of text here, but the bottom line is that the project is committing to 200,000 in addition to paving that it has to repave after construction, the portion of the alley by the project itself. It's also committing $200,000 towards the city cost, and it's all broken down here. The city has all of this and is reviewing it. The city needs to take the lead on this. That project can be the catalyst and the impetus to make this happen. If the project puts some dollars on the table for the city, and I think the city, and discussions with them both when we met all together and then since then, is receptive to this. And if we can improve the conditions, certainly the project itself, which we can talk about, is committing to dollars, but also to things like lighting to improve the safety and security of the alley.
Can you share this in the text box so people can have it, the alley management plan? Because I'm just reading the packet that was shared.
I will email this to both you and to Councilmember Nusma so that you can have this in case people want to follow up. But it's embedded in this presentation. It's also a matter of public record. And we've talked about it both at the last meeting and here. So happy to.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I just don't see it in what we shared with the residents. I just printed out what.
I can email this to you, and I think, and again, as you know, it's a work in progress, and it's fine for us to offer this up, but we can't do anything without the city's involvement. So
Right. But just to get feedback from residents on it, I think it would be helpful if,
yeah,
um,
that'd be great.
so if that's, if you could share that
Absolutely.
document in the text box, that would be great. Thank you.
For sure. And then so some of the management plans are that the ownership group has already done is with the Marion property, for example. There's several different retailers with different dumpsters. Jeff, who's here with us, has already talked to LRS, the waste hauler, to see if we can't consolidate some of those waste bins. So some of this stuff is already started where they're trying to consolidate dumpsters, consolidate trash bins, and also the timing of pickup. And I think that you guys heard some of that, both council people heard some of that when we were there. We also committed to work with the church to try to have a point of contact. There's going to be a website up during construction. We're going to have all of our neighbors will know who the point of contact is, so that if there's any issues, there's someone to call. They certainly, for residents moving in and out of the building, it's going to be a managed move in, move out situation where no one can just because there's one freight elevator that's in the building, no one can just move in and move out without scheduling with building management. And it's going to be an actively managed apartment building. So because it's an apartment and not condos, instead of having 110 different people that all want to do what they want to do, all of this can be centrally managed through Horizon. They have a lot of experience doing this and throughout the city or Chicagoland area. And it will be an actively managed situation where people have to sign up, and there can only be one move in, move out at a time. That will be in writing. We've committed to doing that in the ordinance at the city's suggestion. We have commercial deliveries occurring again internal to the building. We will have safety cameras, lighting, bird-friendly lighting, I should say, with lights that reflect downward. And that's important too. We're meeting with the bird-friendly folks, and we want to make sure that we're doing, this building has a lot of bird-friendly features. That's one of them.
Make sure everyone's questions get, if that's all right too. There's a couple more. I'm afraid that we'll run out of time and we're only on the first. So Marie Simone is asking about, I think there's concerns about the bike lane and how we're going to keep those safe, whether it be like, I guess they're like ballards that are you planning on, what's the plan to ensure?
So we'll do whatever the city would require there. Certainly that we are fully embracing the bike lanes. It's an important feature for the project. And we certainly want to, obviously we're planning on having a lot of bikers added to it. So whatever the appropriate safety is for the city, we're committed to. By the way, this is an existing view of the alley, and here's what it would look like after the building was completed. So I think this is a nice feature also to show how, and the bicycles would come out of this this area right here into the alley, and then merge into the bike lanes either on Church or Davis Street. And so we have these we have those features. So I wanted to address a couple of comments that I'm seeing here. That Terry Wendt is saying, for example, do you want to go through, can I go through some of these comments and questions and address them? I see Suar discussing concerning the alley. So Suar, I hope that we've answered your questions. We are actively working, and again, action speaking louder than words. We told you at the last meeting that we wanted to listen, that we are vested in having this alley improved. And again, we met with the alley. We are the city is reviewing it. I think there's some impetus to get this to be done, and I know that both Councilmember Kelly and Newsom are very supportive. And we said if the project can be an impetus to fix it, that's terrific. Terry Wendt has pointed out that as an urban designer, a lot of mixed use districts, these transitional zones, density should not be split on a street. Rarely does it ever occur on the opposite side of a street. Therefore, the east side of Chicago Avenue should allow the same density as the west side. I totally agree. That's absolutely a planning principle. I hope that our and the context images that we put together at the beginning of this is intended to show, because we had heard that this was an issue. And so to divide a street doesn't make a lot of sense. We agree. You also see an abrupt change between, you know, between the Mather and to the east there. And we feel like we're tapering, we're transitioning nicely. Your comment would argue for even more height for the building. I think we're comfortable. We've been there, done that. We're comfortable with this significantly reduced height. This height is significantly less than what previous proposals were. And Terry, appreciate your thoughts.
There's another question here about the trash, so I guess this would be the alley from
Trash.
CR.
Okay,
While
so
the trash will be enclosed, what happens to those dumpsters on the days trash is collected? Will Waste Management agree to go into the garages to bring out and empty the trash bins? And same question regarding recycling bins.
okay, great questions. They are addressed here. The one in number A, the Horizon team plans to work with the waste. They've already started discussions with waste haulers to consolidate and improve this. They're trying to, yes, have the waste pickup occur internal. There was somebody from the city said, you might not be able to get them to do that. We're going to try if we can to get them to come into the building to do this. If not, it'll still be actively managed where the trash will be internal. The truck parks, it's loaded, and then the dumpster goes back inside and the truck drives away. This is intended to be actively managed, and we are trying to work with not only the trash haulers directly, but there's also a gentleman with the city that handles these things. And I'm looking for his name right now. Melissa might remind me, but I have it written down. And we've met with a whole number of people to talk about this, the management of this, and I know the city's on board too. So hopefully that answers your question.
There was
Yes.
another question regarding some folks have been informed that the Marion valet parking service will not be available after soon. And this was a concern because of parking slots that are now available are harder for customers to get. So I guess there's some concern. Is that accurate?
We're not here. I'm not well versed at all to talk about the Marion. This is not, I mean, we're just talking about the project at hand.
I guess the feeling was just concern about it impacting the parking spaces for the businesses on the street. So since you're right now, am I understanding that you're saying 3 parking spaces, and I'm glad, you know, that we'll reduce it to 15 minutes. I'm concerned about the number of handicap parking spaces on the street. So if we could, I would like to see us consider reducing that to 2.
And we met with the city. We were told we're not really thinking about it in terms of 2 spaces or 3 spaces. We're thinking about this in terms of we've put 60 feet here for 15 minutes. 60 feet might accommodate 2 trucks. It might accommodate 3 cars. If a car is an average of about 18 feet long, maybe call it 20. You could do 3 if the city says, we've got a traffic study, we've got all the dimensions and everything in this document. The city engineers will look at this. But we defer to the city's engineers and certainly we'll do whatever is the best way to handle this. If we're
The
certainly
question from Lori Horwick, did you answer this? Are the parking spaces deeded to particular units or first come, first serve?
It's a great question. This is an apartment rental building. It'll be first come, first serve. They are not deeded because it's a rental situation. So as rental and lease up occurs, if someone wants a spot, they'll be assigned to it. If the first 48 people all get a spot, the next I can't add that well, whatever 110 minus 48 is, won't have parking spaces. And if that's not going to work for them, well, they're not going to rent here. They're going to go to a building where they can get a parking spot. Our traffic study, the concept of transit-oriented development says to the development team, they're willing to, they feel like they're embracing the TOD nature and understanding that there's this parking garage a half a block to the north that has capacity. So a lot of times people will park there on the weekend, perhaps if they need a car on the weekends. But yes, it's first come, first serve by rental.
And then there was a question, Sue R. asked what our meeting was about in the alley, and Jonathan and whoever was there, feel free to chime in about what we met about. A lot of it had to do with the traffic. It had to do with construction, which we'll talk about towards the end. of this different group of questions, but Bill Brown was there also. So anybody who wants to jump in and share about what we met about with regard to the alley, it was, I think it involved mostly the traffic that we've been discussing. And the repaving of the alley and
Mhm.
Yeah, as well as the existing conditions and measures that are being taken to improve the, reduce the number of dumpsters and or the number of pickups in the alley, of the dumpsters that are there now.
We talked about all of that. So to answer your question, we talked about all of those things, and certainly the project team is committed to doing what it can to consolidate dumpsters, reduce dumpsters. Those conversations have already started. But a lot of the concerns that we heard, and I think all of us heard, were existing conditions. There's problems now. We think our position is that with this project, not only are we not exacerbating that problem, but we think this project goes a long way towards helping to alleviate some of those concerns. Again, we have 7 separate retail establishments there now, each with their own dumpsters, each with their own loading activity. All of that will be consolidated, and they're all external to those buildings and some of it in the alley. And all of that will be consolidated internal to the new building. So we think the new building will improve those conditions, even more so because of the commitments of the team in terms of dollars for repaving and in terms of active ongoing management of the alley situation. So we think that this will improve the situation. We understand that it's a difficult situation right now. And again, I think the city is committed, most importantly, to working with everyone to try to get this fixed, because none of this can happen without the city. But we were happy to be part of the solution with the city. And if we can, and the fact that we were able to put this together, the meeting and the ongoing discussions is terrific.
okay. And I think Bill Brown, you were at that meeting. Can you unmute?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Claire. One of the things that we discussed at length with no conclusion was the capacity of the loading dock, the image showing 2 vehicles, concerns that I expressed on behalf of the church that we don't believe things will get better in the alley. The food service for Prairie Moon remains on the north. The Asian restaurant on the south remains. And so there was not, as far as the church was concerned, any anonymity about that things were going to get better. And we'll just have to see. I think the alley management plan is something that'll be really important to look at, and hopefully we'll get a copy from Claire. Those are my thoughts about the discussion at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Liz, there's a question about variances. We don't want all of them, but just with regard to parking, since that's what we're discussing, and anything related to parking and alley, what variances? I think Bruce Enenbach was asking that. Liz?
So the question is what variances are being requested by the applicant?
With regard to parking.
Michael, why don't you go ahead and respond to that question as the applicant,
Sure.
because you're more
Yeah,
familiar.
absolutely.
Parking, yeah.
Thank you, Liz. So sure. So right now, this project, because it's in a transit-oriented location, would require a total of 91 spaces. And we have an eligible site development allowance or a variance that we're requesting through the plan development process to reduce the 91 spaces to 48 spaces. So about half, or approximately a little more than half of a reduction. And that's an eligible site development allowance. If there's a question about that, I'm happy to get into more detail with it.
Okay, thank you. And Jonathan or Liz, if I'm missing any questions, or if somebody would make sure to get all your questions regarding alley, parking, and traffic. So if I've missed you, please jump in if I'm missing a question here regarding that topic before we move on to the units and affordable housing.
I just want to share some data, since it's fresh in my mind, from a 4th Ward meeting last night. everyone on the call is probably familiar with the Tapestry Station project, which is a new building on the site of the former Vogue Fabrics. I was curious about their parking situation and the actual utilization. As of now, that building is about 90% occupied, but the parking spaces are only about 70% occupied. And the number of parking spaces, they had a variance in that building as well. We approved a 39% ratio, or like 0.39 parking spaces per unit. And based on that utilization currently, only about 30% of the units are using parking. So just sharing that data for context here.
Okay, and let's see. Okay, any other questions regarding traffic? I know people are very concerned that this is a really high traffic area in Evanston, maybe one of the busiest intersections in our downtown. So there's a lot of concern about the added traffic. So I know when we can get that alley plan, I want to be able to share that out, because I would, expect that you would also like resident feedback. And I think the more we can see it, what you have now, when you send that draft out, I'll post that so that we can give you feedback and also let staff know feedback from residents, the ones most impacted by this. I'm sure there'll be a lot of really helpful insights. So thank you for providing that as soon as you can. Be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I meant to email it to you actually today, and I will do that for sure. We'll follow up. I'd love to, we want to get comments. I think more importantly, again, we're deferring to the city. It's their alley, they own it. We're willing to, in the project as a public benefit, can contribute to the improvement of it. And we really need the city to take the lead. And as we've seen, as because from our meeting the other day, they are doing that. And so that's a positive thing. We know that what we can do, we're doing everything we can, right? We're adding some cameras again for security and safety. We're adding lighting. We're proposing to repave our sections, but we can't repave without participation from other people, because everyone has their rights to their portions of the alley in front of their property. So, and of course we have the city as well. So absolutely, we think again that this will improve conditions. So.
Okay, thank you. So everyone's mic is muted, so it's hard for anybody to chime in. If I'm missing any questions regarding alley traffic, can you please raise your hand in case I missed any questions before we move on? No hands raised, and Jonathan and Liz, if I'm missing any, please let me know. Okay, then we'll move on to the next topic, which is about of the units, the number of units, the size of the units, and the affordable units. So let's see, there are a lot of questions on here about that. Let's see. So let's see, we have a question from Carol Hirsch Bleckman. Hard to understand who you are thinking will live here. Are these geared to students, singles, elders? Seems like we are continuing the canyonization of Evanston. We will soon be void of any charm, vintage buildings. Okay, so that's a little bit about the design. So there are questions about the demographics of the building and who this is being geared towards. So if you could address that.
Sure, and I may actually defer. We know for sure it's an apartment building. We certainly want to welcome any and all people that would come here. Let me just address and then I'll turn it over. The sort of the unit mix. There's a mix, sort of an equal mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. So that's important to understand. There's nothing larger than a 2-bedroom. So we don't anticipate a lot of big family activity.
Can you break that down for us, the number?
Sure. There's a total of 34 studios, 44 1-bedrooms, and 32 2-bedrooms. And as a result of that unit mix, we get the affordable housing, because there was one comment of, I bet you all the units are small. No, the affordable housing ordinance, the inclusionary housing ordinance for Evanston requires that the affordable be dispersed in a percentage with the market rate units. So what that unit mix breaks down to is 2 affordable studio units, 4 affordable 1-bedroom units, and 2 affordable 2-bedroom units. And when we talk about affordability, this is not necessarily low income housing. It's people that are making 60% of area median income. So the typical renter might be a teacher, a nurse, a fireman, a policeman, someone that maybe is working in the commercial spaces. So it's not subsidized housing. It's workforce housing. And it is, so hopefully that answers the question about the affordability a little bit.
Oh, wait, Jonathan Herman, you're saying none of the affordable units are studios. I thought 2 would be.
I think 2 are, 2 I believe are.
Okay.
But and what there's a market study that talks about some of the who the intended sort of residents will be. Jeff, can you chime in on that? Who you think might be the typical renter based on your experience of other buildings? And
Yeah, I mean, what we're probably going to attract are, as you mentioned, young couples. For 2 bedrooms, it'll be people that are starting families, young professionals. The attraction of Evanston, as many of you know, probably the same reasons that you live in Evanston. It's great geographically located for those that are working in the city. And sometimes you have a couple, one person's working in the city, one person is working in the suburbs. And it's great for that. I don't think we'll have a high population of students, given the fact that students, number one, it'll be difficult for them to afford compared to on-campus housing, perhaps some graduate students, but also young empty nesters, people that are not needing their house anymore. Kids have grown up, moved out of the house, but they still want an anchor in Evanston. And we're seeing a lot of product like this popping up in the suburbs, particularly in Wilmette and Winnetka, and they're attracting the same type of demographic that I've just described.
And rental rate ranges.
So,
So
Go ahead.
rental rate ranges, the studios will probably be somewhere around $1,800 to $1,900. The 1-bedrooms in the $2,500 to $2,700 range, and then the 2 bedrooms in the $3,400 to $3,600 range. And someone asked about the IHO rents. They're promulgated by the Housing Authority. We don't set those. I think they're roughly, studio is about $1,000. A 1-bedroom is about $1,100, and a 2 bedrooms of about $1,150, $1,160.
There's a question here from Meg. Do these reasonably called small units and limited to 2-bedroom count in the city's plan to increase housing for families? How many of us would have chosen to live in a 600 square foot with our children in order to live in Evanston? How many families are able to sustain a no-car lifestyle in our climate without a car? Don't the likely reasonable answers to these questions suggest who the demographic attracted to the building will be? Okay, so I guess that's to us, Jonathan. And I would say, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that it is, 80, it's really about 80 studios in 1 bedroom versus 32 2-bedrooms. I would like to see more 2 bedrooms so that we are providing more housing for potential families. Jonathan, that was directed to us. I don't know if,
one thing about the unit mix, there's obviously there's different ways to look at this. This particular product in a high rise is not really intended to be this building can't be all things to all people in Evanston, right? There's a lot. What's nice about this is that there's a diverse and mature housing market in Evanston with all forms of different housing. And what this addresses really is the demographic that Jeff spoke to. It's not really a family could a family live there in a 2-bedroom? Sure, but this is not intended to address affordability for families, but it is intended to address affordability for workforce housing for all those other folks that I mentioned that might be earning 60% of area median income, including professors, perhaps, or perhaps, again, people that work in the city. Again,
And
it's only
Michael, to add to that comment, while this particular building is not necessarily housing all of the families of Evanston, you have to understand these people are moving out of potentially a house that is freed up now. Like you mentioned, those empty nesters that are sitting on a 3 or 4 bedroom house that they no longer need. They're moving into our building because they want to size down, and that home becomes available for other families of Evanston. So just by creating supply will free up housing stock for families. Maybe not in this exact building per se, but in Evanston at large.
Yeah, and again, this is a terrific improvement, terrific progress in the first ward, where I don't know that there's been a lot of affordable housing created, and so that's a really positive thing. And certainly, it sounds like Evanston is having a lot of plans and a lot of discussions to increase housing, as we're talking about in the national political discourse. How do we increase housing, make housing more affordable generally in our country? Certainly, Evanston is a good experiment, or a good not even experiment. It's already proven that this is something that Evanston has been on the forefront of for a long time in terms of density and understanding density and housing. So
I think
that's
it's very complex. I'll just say that. I don't think it's just simply building our way out of the affordability crisis. But so there's another comment here about including more appropriately sized affordable housing units. And please, again, let me know if I'm missing any other questions or comments about the units. Okay, I think I just want to make sure we get through all the items. So, okay, am I missing any? Please raise your hand if I missed any questions or comments about housing, about the units, the unit size and the affordable housing.
There is a request to repeat the unit cost based on the bedrooms, what the projected rents will approximately be.
So, okay, am I not mistaken? I think you said for a 1-bedroom, it would be about 1,900, is that right? Our studio.
Studio
And
1819, right? Yeah.
And then the 1-bedroom would be about 2,800?
24 to 2,700, and a 2-bedroom, 34 to 3,600.
Thank you. Let's see. Thank you, Liz. Okay. Okay, and again, let me know if please raise your hand. I don't want to miss anybody's question.
Somebody asked me to repeat the number of affordable units. It's 10 affordable units. That's 10% of the base number of units.
Well, I'm sorry. I think it's 8. It's 8.
I'm sorry, am I misspeaking here?
Yeah, it's 8. So the base, and we ran this calculation at the last meeting. We have 78 units, with 10% would be 7.8, but we round up to 8.
Right.
And so that's what the current. We could do more. We could do more if the building was taller, but we could
We'd be
get
happy to take 10, Jeff, if you're offering.
Yes, we go back to the original.
That offer was previously made and rejected, for the record.
Okay. Okay, and yeah, okay, the building is all rental. Okay, so I think let's see.
We do have a hand raised, Paul, if you'd like to go.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Liz.
Yes, I've been thinking a lot about the housing issue, and getting more housing and getting more affordable housing can pull in opposite directions. If you build large luxury buildings, they will be rented by people who are making considerable money and actually drive up the area median income, on the basis of which affordable units are computed. So affordable housing pulls one way, more housing, if it's addressed in that way, pulls another. The other thing I want to say is that not everybody wants to live in a shiny new tall building. They are attractive in some ways, but in a country where everybody is, I'm just going to read what I have here and then I'll shut up, okay? In a situation where we're hearing all the time about loneliness and disconnection, you're an atom in one of these big buildings. I've lived in one. My sister lives in one now. I know that. I live in an 18-unit complex now, and I know everybody, and I've made new friends. There is something to be said for developing smaller, mid-sized things with a human scale, in addition to, and perhaps and sometimes in preference to, these big buildings. And it's kind of a compromise between single occupancy houses, which are large and take up a lot of space, and giant buildings, which quickly increase the number of residents, but also drive up prices. Finally, I think that we've been dealing with this since 2018. We know that the D4 zone is supposed to have a limit of 105 feet in height. We've been saying that since 2018. We commend HRG for coming closer to that limit, but they have not met it. I think we're all getting blue in the face from repeating the same thing. But, you know, it says 105 feet, make it 105 feet and we'll go away. But that hasn't happened yet. And all of this stuff about, well, the Mather is taller, 500 Davis is taller. Yeah, but there was no plan when those were built. And this stuff about why isn't the east side of the street the same as the west side of the street? You have to draw the line somewhere. Then they're going to extend it. I mean, you could extend it all the way to the lake if you like, but I wouldn't like that. That's what I have to say about this. 105 feet, period. If you can do that, great. If you can't do that, well, we're going to keep arguing.
Thank you, Paul. And I see a few other comments. I don't know, Kira Kelly, do you want to read your question regarding? I see. Oh, that's part of the dialogue. Okay, let's see. Okay, so, okay, any other questions or comments regarding the units? Please, if you could raise your hand so I don't miss you. No? Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
trying to find, Kira Kelly asked to be unmuted. I'm just trying to find them on the list. 1 second.
Hi, I actually wanted to talk about the material, the material that's being used, which is steel
Okay.
and glass and
Kira,
concrete.
so we'll go ahead and move to that now. So go ahead. We'll move
Oh.
on to the architecture and the design. That's our next topic.
Sorry,
So,
I
no,
didn't
that's all right. I
realize I
think
was talking about them.
so go
I
right
mean, I will go back to the height as well. It really makes sense. The entire block is this pretty much this, maxes out where it maxes out. And it really only makes sense to continue that to the end of this block, especially it being a transitional situation. I just, as Paul said, I mean, maybe 105 feet is higher than that, but nonetheless, why can't we just be within the realm of what it's supposed to be? And it's already pretty objectionable, to be honest. It's really sort of sad to me that it's going to take over a stretch of independent businesses that were there, that were really pretty vibrant, and we have less and less of that. So I am just reiterating Paul's point on height before we go into the brick. Sorry, I jumped into the brick. But if we are, another thing, just again, contextually, it makes sense to continue the brick material. Even the Marion's addition is made of that same pretty look and feel. I don't know if it's actually brick, but whatever it is, it makes sense that it's like that. The latest Hilton Hotel Express, or I'm sorry, the name escapes me, a block south that was just built, was built out of the same type of brick material. Why are we using the steel and the glass, you know, and this shiny sort of Rogers Park type of huge high-rise material why wasn't brick considered? And can we consider it? Thank you.
So if we want to address that, I would recommend that Tim, maybe you could comment on the design of the building. And I'll pull up an image.
Sure, pull up an image, please. So we have gone through, over the course of the development of this project, different ideas about what it should look like. And at one point we did have something that was more brick-like all the way to the top, a mixture of concrete and brick. And that was one thing that we did explore. But what we're really trying to do here is serve a combination of both the residents who will live here and do something that is, we feel, fits strongly within the context overall. And it's more than just about the materiality. We are using brick at the base, and we're doing it in what I would say, it isn't necessarily contemporary or traditional, but a word I like to use is transitional. And that's what we're seeing at the very base of the building. And then as we go up to the mid-rise portion, the residential piece of the building, it's important to think about how the building is oriented and the massing of the building, the form of the building. And we have this the narrow face of the building facing the street so that it's less imposing along that street wall. Maybe just switch to I'd go to the previous view, Michael. The one more. That one right there, thank you. That narrow face reduces its impact along the street wall. And this is also a good place to point out that the top of the building in this image isn't the actual top. That's more in the middle. You can see just a glint of the full height of the building in the background, which is at 135 feet. And then this face here is at about 125. So it's really not that imposing. And when you look at it in context of the Marion next door, the Marion addition, it's not that much taller. So the building really tries to blend in with its context, recognizing that it is a new building. So we're not trying to make it look like it was there forever, but by the use of the materiality of it, especially the brick, we're making suggestions visually that it belongs within this context. I think it's also important to note that Evanston isn't just one style of architecture. It's really a mixture, a melting pot of different styles, and being done over buildings being done of their time. So when you walk through downtown Evanston, even on this stretch of Chicago Avenue, there's really quite a mixture of different styles. One thing too is that renters today, especially the target for this building, they really enjoy having that full height glass because they like to be inside their apartments and looking out at the view. The people who are on the upper floor will be afforded the upper floors here. When they get above the Marion next door, they will be afforded views towards the city to the south and the lake to the east and to the north. And there really aren't bad views from anywhere within this building. So we're thinking about how it gets used, and we're thinking about what its impact is visually, and we're making something that's broken down sculpturally in terms of the massing. You can see here that it's not just a simple brick box, but it's a brick volume that has a lot of nuance and different indentations and projections. There's a subtle curve at the southwest corner, also at the southeast corner, that softens the image. So we think that we're making a contribution to the overall character of downtown Evanston, and doing it in a responsible way in terms of the way it impacts the urban context.
Thank you. Let's see, there's the question about from Tina Payton, what happened to the wedding cake plan for the city? Right, so this is a transitional zone, meaning that in the middle of the city of the downtown, you have the highest buildings transitioning down, and that's why this is lower. On that question, can you tell me how many feet higher is this proposed development compared to the building next door, the Marion? I should know that, I apologize.
We don't know. You,
There's a
Tim, you
street-
might know.
There's a streetscape slide there that I think has that information. Oh, there.
There we go. So that's 93 feet.
I'm sorry, it's
93 feet.
93 feet is the,
Marion.
and this one is 135.
Correct.
But from the street.
But that's like the max height. The zoning height of this building is 114 feet
Okay,
because we
Well, I
don't.
mean, the difference is 42. The existing structure, 93 for the Mather, 135 for the proposed new building. The difference is 42 feet.
got it.
Yes.
Correct.
For
The question is driving at is what is this going to look like to real people, pedestrians on the street? It's going to be a difference of 32 feet because the top 10 feet is set back 40 feet. So we're really talking about visually, pragmatically 32 feet difference.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot with the podium, that the ground floor and how much it pulls the pedestrian into that ground floor, the retail space. I think that a lot of times is what will impact, the pedestrian feel, is to avoid any sort of that overbearing, over vertical feel at the bottom when you're trying to pull people into store spaces. I know, Tim and I.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important, to really work on that aspect. Let's see, there was another question here, and I'm sorry I missed it. Tony asked about the utilities. Are those included? What utilities are included in the rent? And I apologize for going backwards, but I missed that question.
It was with most typical apartments, and this will be the same. The tenants will pay for their electric, their gas, and their cable TV if they choose to get cable TV. The landlord typically includes the water, trash removal.
You said gas, Jeff. I thought.
Right. That I was going to say, and in addition to that, we've pledged to make this building all electric for the unit, so they actually will not have a gas bill. So they would pay for their electric and.
That's the most significant, perhaps, new commitment towards sustainability. But there's a number of sustainable features in the building. Obviously, that's a major move that you prompted, Councilman Nusma. So that's a really good point to bring up.
And there was a question in the chat. The building will be designed to LEED Gold, or did we talk about this? LEED Gold or equivalent?
We're doing the Green Globes certification as opposed to LEED, and Tim could probably speak a little bit more to that, but that seems to be the more common and prevailing standard for environmental initiatives.
Yeah, we are doing Green Globes here. We haven't determined which level of Green Globes, but that's the direction we're heading versus LEED. The advantage with Green Globes is that it provides a wider variety of options to allow us to get there, things that aren't included in the LEED program. And we are just in very early stages of working through the specifics of that.
Great. Okay, let's see. Any other questions here regarding design?
I just, sorry to interrupt. Tina Payton has her hand up raised, and so just want to recognize that.
Thank you. Okay, Tina?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I did ask about the wedding cake plan. The developer may not know, but the city, for years had said that taller buildings in the middle and then drop down. Could you put the slide back up there with the heights of the different buildings? Yes. And so question for the city is, where do you say that the boundaries are for the height of these buildings? I mean, they're just getting taller further out. You know, they're not getting shorter. It's taller and taller and taller. So where is the middle? Where is the downtown Evanston boundary? Do we know that?
So it is the D3 versus D4, and I don't know, Liz, would you feel comfortable addressing that? But that is the transitional zone marks where the height is supposed to drop.
Correct. Yeah, I can pull up a boundary map, but essentially my understanding is it runs down Chicago Avenue on the east side, closest to the lake. It does transition into the transition zone, where on the west side, it has a different zoning designation. So the boundary essentially goes to the backup alley, is my understanding.
Yes, that's correct. So we're definitely in the downtown zone. We're in the D4 zone, and you can see the difference. You can see that core of the taller buildings to our west. And just to be clear, we're this much shorter building right here. I don't know if there was some confusion.
This is the transitional zone, though. You're across the street from the center.
100%. So we're transitioning downward quite a bit, like we're 100 feet shorter from the building on the right across the street from us. We're 100 feet shorter than that. Terry, to his earlier point, I think from a land use planning standpoint, correctly argued that maybe that's a little bit of an extreme drop. It going down 100 feet, especially given these taller buildings in our foreground here. But that seems to be the direction that the community wanted and the city you wanted. So there were development teams responding and listening by making a dramatic height drop, again, transitioning to this other district. But if you look at our building in the existing context, it's certainly of the same. I think anyone that looks at this would agree that there's from a massing standpoint and from a height standpoint, it's transitioning, and it fits. It's a perfect transition going east. There's buildings that are of the same size, 2 blocks east of us. So anyways, that seems to be the direction. It is transitioning from the D3 on the west side of the street.
And so folks understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, so the D4, which is the transition zone, is the maximum height is 105 feet. And so that's where we're getting we're looking at a variance here to go slightly over that.
We're 9 feet, 9 foot 7 inches taller. So the variance that we're requesting with this planned unit development is 9 feet 7 inches. And because it's a planned development, we are now also, again, having all these other features like the affordable housing inclusion with and things that are occurring here. So that hopefully I think I'm saying that correctly. There's a bunch of public benefits, I should say, for in exchange for that 9 foot 7 inches.
Can I ask another question, Councilmember?
Sure.
So also, did you say the retail space was 7,000 square feet? I'm sorry, I missed.
Approximately 7,000, 6,800.
So how much is the rent for that? And considering that many of the apartment complexes have vacancies, what are you going to do to try to attract someone to rent? And what is the rent? for the
Uh,
commercial?
I'll answer the second question, then turn it over to Jeff for the first. For the second question, in terms of what we're doing to attract new people, is building 110 units where everyone, I think, understands that with more density, more people, there's more people going to eat and shop in the downtown. So by creating more people living here, we think that that'll significantly contribute to a lease up of our retail. The other feature is that this is our existing retail. The 7 different storefronts are really old and in some ways like obsolete. They're vacant now. And so we think that a more modern structure, a more modern building will be attractive to with nice, features to it and good technology in the building will attract better tenant base for our one store or perhaps multiple stores, depending on how it gets divided up. And again, the density helps that cause people, a restaurant, for example, or a retail shop would want to be in a building that has people above it. Jeff, do you want to talk about the rental rate?
So the rental rate on that first floor commercial unit will probably be somewhere around $35 a square foot is today's market. So that comes out to, I don't know, times 7,000, about $240,000 per year. And the hope there is to attract a restaurant user so we could activate that first floor and have a sidewalk cafe going and generate buzz, generate interest. That building currently, it's like the missing tooth of that block. We recently got Mensch's to open up. Jack DeMar opened up that restaurant. It's his 3rd restaurant on the block, and it's doing fantastic. He's our tenant. He owns Picnic, and he owns the Poke Place across the street. And, we have Tapas Barcelona, and I was talking to Horacio, who owns Tapas Barcelona. The addition of this restaurant is going to just drive interest, drive pedestrians, not to mention roughly 150 people living on top of this to help these business owners. They need people, they need patrons. And this is going to be the catalyst for that, to complete this block, to bring people to Chicago Avenue. There's no reason why there shouldn't be people walking up and down Chicago Avenue all the time. And, people are, there's comments here about small businesses and all that. We're champions of small businesses. Every one of my commercial tenants is a small business. I don't have one national credit tenant there. These are moms and pops. And we just rented one of the spaces to Eggs with Benefits. He's a local operator. He's got 3 other great breakfast spots up in Rogers Park and the Uptown area. And he's opening up in our building. We have Joy E there. So we're family owned, local business ourselves. So we understand what that takes and the investment that's required by people. We just invested $150,000 in helping La Cocinita build out a new space in our existing Marion building. So, we're pulling from the same side of the rope as these business owners. I have every incentive for them to survive, for them to make it. I want them to make it. They're my tenants there. And this space, activating that first floor space, which is a dump right now, I couldn't even give it away for free if I tried to because it's functionally obsolete. It is a nothing. It's a nothing burger. And we need to do this.
Yeah, so I think that is a topic about the small businesses, because I think despite what you're saying, I know that small businesses are very concerned when large construction happens and the impact to their businesses. So
Sure.
that we do want to discuss as a topic.
Yeah, and it's a very valid concern. And I met with a couple of our tenants at Tapas Barcelona I met with. So as Michael mentioned before, we're obligated by the Evanston laws and ordinances to submit a construction administration plan, which we will do. And that plan is very extensive. We did not put one together yet because it's typically done by the general contractor. We're going to hire a general contractor that is professional, that is experienced in doing projects of this size. When we built the Marion Tower in 2015, I think that was, we had very little issues. People are asking, what about, you're going to close the alley and close the street? I don't even believe we ever even closed the alley when we built the Marion addition. We had flaggers back there for a short period of time. I think we had when you're building a foundation, there's an over dig, so there's some disruption there. But the alley was never closed. The street wasn't closed. And we'll submit this plan that gets very granular and very detailed in what is and is not allowed as it relates to construction. There's very strict requirements for us to monitor vibration, to monitor noise, to monitor dust, hours of work, the construction traffic patterns. All of those things will be done. You could pull them up for other projects. I mean, the Ryan, the Northwestern football field, you can take a look at, just as a sample, the level of detail that goes into these construction plans. They're not whipped together overnight, and we'll have one for this building, obviously.
I just wanted to pause and point out that Tina, Padden, and Paul both have hands up. I'm not sure if those are
Oh,
new hands
great,
up or
thank
old
you.
hands up.
Tina? No,
She may,
Tina?
she may have asked her question
Yes,
already.
Okay, Tina?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
so I asked this at another meeting. This will be homework for the city people. So we've had, do you have that picture with the Albion? Did you show the Albion, like the heights and stuff like that? But we've
Yeah.
had so many, wait, it was the last one that you just changed.
This one?
No, back up. Yes.
Okay, so I'll leave it here.
So, we've had, I would like to know how many people are actually in these buildings. So we've had a discussion about more people. I've heard some of the aldermen said and the city people, oh, we need more people downtown, and they're going to these restaurants. Well, we have a whole lot of people. Albion is gigantic, the Avador, 1717 Ridge, the Link, and we have a whole bunch more people than we did 10 years ago, and the businesses are still closing. This is craziness. This is just a general comment, not targeting towards this development necessarily, but this is insane. We just keep approving gigantic buildings, and we're pretending that it's going to help the retail. It's not going to help the retail. I don't know which small business is going to be paying $240,000 a year for rent. The rents are outrageous. I'm a landlord. I can't get any help, or I can't provide affordable units because the rents are so high. It's just keep getting higher and higher. And the height is just getting higher and higher. No family, let's be real, no family and many minority, and when I say minority, I'm talking about Black and Latino family, are going to fit in anywhere you're talking about. There's nowhere for us downtown. It doesn't exist. So this is a big picture for 2045. Eliminate Black people and Latino people from the downtown Evanston. We can't afford it. And that doesn't mean just the rental in an apartment. We can't afford to rent a commercial space. And I have asked this question from the city, have never gotten a response. Besides the Robinsons, which Black person in the city of Evanston owns or operates any commercial building or significant apartment buildings? These is skyrocket buildings you're talking about. So when we talk about transparency and equal and fair and we're helping everybody, false answer, fake news. stick to the height. I don't live right next to the development you're talking about today, but you know, the link went down several stories in order to get themselves built. So you've been coming here several years trying to do this. Maybe just knock it down some so you can maybe have a little more friendliness to the neighbors. And but this discussion about more people downtown is going to help the businesses. That's not true. E2 has had vacancy almost the whole time they've been developed, 10 years. They had 2 things in there and it's vacant. So I don't want to hear anything about this is going to help more people. And these are going to be Northwestern students. I don't care what kind of conversation this is going to be. It's not families. Families cannot pay $3,400 in rent. If that was the case, they could buy a house. So this is not that. These are Northwestern students, and that's who can afford.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those important concerns, Ms. Payton. And Paul? Let's see. Paul. Okay, Paul?
Yes. I would like to second Tina's eloquent response. I mean, this does not deal with affordable housing in any real way, which you know. Here's my question, though. Would limiting the building to 105 feet render it financially impossible for HRG to build it? Is that the concern? I am aware that infrastructure is constant, more or less, you know, and that you have to build to a certain height to get your ROI up, but could they make it decently if they complied with the 105-foot limit? Because if they did, we'd be done dragging ourselves out once or twice a year to argue about this. This has been going on since 2018. And it's nice that it came down to 12 stories and 135 feet from 18 stories and 185 feet a couple of years ago. But it's kind of like, I'm going to make an analogy and then I'll stop. Suppose somebody wants to sell you something and you know that the going rate for it is $100. They say, oh, we'll give you this for $150. And you say, no. Well, okay, we'll give it to you for $1,500. You know, we'll give you 150 with these improvements. No. Well, we'll do you a big favor after 6 years and come down to $120. And we're supposed to feel, wow, how generous, how considerate. I think this has been a game of attrition where you hammer us year after year with these absurdly oversized proposals. And finally, if there's something that's sort of within striking distance, but not really there, then we're supposed to say, oh, okay, we give up, build it. No, we aren't going to give up. And I value Evanston partly because there are options for living at a more intimate and human scale. And I think a lot of other people do.
If they can't afford it at
And if they
105
can't,
feet, are they going to sell the
yeah,
property?
or, you know, if you can't afford to build it at 105 feet, maybe sell it to somebody who can. But that's, I know that's harsh, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
And
Thank
then
you, Paul. Thank you, Kira. Kira Kelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what Tina said, and thank you, Tina, because she's 100% right. And I know she's been around, as have I, and we've seen so many high rises come in, and the developers and the city saying the same thing, that adding people, density will help, you know, rescue downtown. And it's not only not worked, but it's the opposite. I know I'm repeating myself here, but we've changed the vibe. People want to, you know, people are really looking for charming places to walk around and to eat dinner under festival lights in the evening. I mean, look at Wilmette, look at Andersonville, Southport, other areas in Chicago. Everywhere I go on vacation, there's throngs of people. And we are a college town. Like at least we've always had the college students, but they're not even really hanging out. Like we've done something here. You know, we've taken away stretches of vibrant areas, and we're about to do it again, especially stretches of outdoor dining, which seem to be a really like a linchpin, a key to making an area vibrant. I'm starting to believe. We did it with the Albion. That was like our really nice area of just many outdoor dining places, and we replaced it. And now it's like we've deadened that block. It's really, there's not much going on. There's a completely empty first floor. And this is, you know, similarly. And to our aldermen, we really need another strategy. Other towns are doing much more than just chasing these high rises. And so I hope that we can do that. And also Northwestern students, we always hear it's going to be young professionals, it's going to be married couples. And I'm sorry, but it's it's Northwestern grad students, mostly international, and that's fine, but that's just the reality. There's even like shuttles going back and forth, you know, from these buildings. So let's be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on thank you very much, everybody, for your comments regarding the design and the overall building height. Any other comments before the last part is about the construction, and I think we do need to talk a little bit about that. I know it's getting late, so we'll try to wrap up shortly. If I missed any comments regarding the design of the building? No. Okay. So our next we want to discuss the construction, and maybe I'll just kick it off with, do we have an estimated time frame with this current proposal for the construction?
Well, once we get it approved, it would probably take about 18 months to build. Now, granted, yeah.
And of the 18 months, how much of that is internal versus external work?
Probably about 6 months of it are external, and then 12 months are internal.
So the impact on the exterior in terms of the construction management that we were talking about earlier, the big impacts are the first 6 months. Is
Correct.
that, yeah,
Right.
that's what
Okay, and then the sort of the plan for the alley plan during construction, if you could talk to that a little bit.
It is.
So there won't
we
be a
have-
loading bay, like when you built the newer building, the Marion, there's a loading bay to put cranes in. Now there won't be anything since it's gonna be built right out. So it does seem like it will be difficult to park in the alley.
Again, this is no different than what we built next door. As I said before, there'll be a construction management plan that we put together by a general contractor that builds these buildings all the time. They don't even have the ability to close a public alley, so they have to work within the confines of our land. There may be times when temporarily half that alley is obstructed. There'll be a flag man there or something like that, but there is business that has to take place in that alley. There's garbage that has to be removed. We're not going to interrupt those services. We just can't. I don't know what else to say to that.
So are you, just so I know, so you're saying that everyone who parks back there will be able to continue parking back there throughout the duration of the construction?
I didn't say anything about parking. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, the parking, there's a parking lot for the church.
And
back
as
there.
well-
We're not going on their land. I mean, yeah.
No, we would not be blocking access to parking. They would continue to be, anyone that's accessing their parking from the alley would continue to be able to do that. And Liz is here. I mean, Liz, when these construction management plans go into place, can you comment on the process of just how that works?
Absolutely. So for construction management plans, those are run through our building division. The plans are routed to multiple different departments, including transportation, public, the entirety of public works, our traffic staff, folks that manage parking. We also work closely with our police department as well, because they receive a lot of inquiries when construction activity is going on. And all of those departments take a look at the construction management plan. There's an agreed upon truck route for where trucks can access the site. We also require the developer to indicate where staging of any activity will occur related to the project itself, for materials, cranes. They would be required to obtain permits for any activities that occur within the public right of way. That includes the alley in the back. Should this project move forward and the alley be reconstructed, that in and of itself will have a design, construction management plan associated with that aspect of the project as well. This is also something that the city would manage the construction, likely through a third-party firm to actually do the construction work. That whole process too would come along with, as was indicated earlier, a plan for maintaining access to all of the different surrounding sites. So there is quite a bit of work that goes into those construction management plans, and they're also adaptable. So as concerns or issues are encountered, if they're encountered during the construction process, the city can work with the general contractor to be able to manage any of those concerns. The construction management plan also includes contact information 24/7 to the contracting firm, so that if there are questions or concern, there is a direct contact. And all of that information is located on the city's website. And in a lot of instances, actual developers will create websites and email listservs associated with their construction projects, so that nearby residents or anyone who's interested in the project can receive notifications. And so that's something that through conditions of approval could potentially be added as something to consider with this project, that the developer create that website and that notification process, just so that everyone is informed and stays on top of the activities that are going on and what potential impacts to them could be.
Thank you so much. So I know there's a lot of concern because I've had to deal with it with some blocks, and I know Jonathan as well, where there has been construction and some of our business district has been just hit really hard. So Liz, in terms of, I know I really want to see that construction plan ahead of time, because either it can go, it can have minimum impact on our block and our business district, or it could have maximum, depending. And there's a lot of different, ways, the devil's in the details here. And so can we see that ahead of time? And also, like, for example, if someone asked me this too, so what if, the permit is for do we designate the time like 18 months if it's supposed to be finished, or 24 months? Is there a not to exceed, or are there penalties if you exceed, or how does that work, so that folks can have an idea as to know this will be done by this time, and if not, there's some teeth in it? I'm getting asked this question, so if you could let me know how something like that, for example, works. That's just with regard to the duration of the time of the construction. And a lot of other questions I've been getting asked, so.
Yeah, so typically when it comes to timelines of construction, building permits have a certain sunset for which they, after they're issued, if a project is not seeing notable progress, there are avenues by which the city can go and address those with the applicant. Typically, we don't, in my time here, which again is a couple of years with the city of Evanston, we haven't had any issues with folks once they start construction actually completing it. But
yes, we have. Sorry, we have, and the fine is so small. So I think Jonathan knows, we around the Fountain Square area, we have had an issue with ongoing construction where there have been many, many, many extensions granted. So I'm thinking about the small businesses around here and the impact. So I guess what I'm looking at is, can we have this in an ordinance, something where, so that residents can know and business owners can know that, the city is standing behind this timeline, and there is some incentive or disincentive to really get this done within a time frame.
When
Or
a developer
have
is building a building, they have every incentive to get it done as quickly as possible. They're paying interest on a construction loan,
Right,
and you're
but
going to make money once you
Sure,
start.
but sometimes things might be too expensive. You might hold, who knows? I don't know. I don't do construction, but I have witnessed, right? I know as an alderman that this has happened where projects have been put off for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's expense. And then, so we're just looking at, different things that we can do to ensure that this will go as smoothly and quickly as possible from the city's end as well. So, and then in terms of like, there's outdoor dining that we'd love, and one of the residents just spoke to that. We all very much deeply value Tapas Barcelona, and the outdoor dining there is so robust. I was there the other evening, it was packed. I want to ensure that there are safeguards for dust and, what we can do to minimize, this is going to negatively impact that business. That business and the other ones around there. So, but that one in particular, because it's outdoor dining.
Again, to address that comment again, I met with Horatio, and when we built the Marion Tower, at that time, we were building literally right up against Tapas Barcelona. And they stayed in business. We put signage on our construction fencing to remind people that they were still open for business. We cleaned the restaurant. We had vibration monitors in that restaurant, dust control monitors in that restaurant. Now, when we're building this, we're 60 feet away from that restaurant. Not to say that we don't have to take precaution, but the impact is going to be even less. We're not building, keep in mind, there's a new building now in between Tapas Barcelona and this new legacy building. But again, we have every incentive to keep our tenants in business. It doesn't help us if we put them out.
No, I realize you do, but we just want to dot our I's and cross our T's here. So I would love to see all the various measures that can be implemented that you're suggesting that you do, which is wonderful. I would like to have a construction plan attached to the ordinance so that we can be sure.
Stronger than that, we have a lease with tenants. Our lease obligates us not to provide a nuisance.
And so Liz could probably comment on that. How does this stuff get memorialized? Yeah.
One of the things we've done previously on planned developments is actually providing specificity of what needs to be included as part of that construction management plan. So things, for example, like requiring vibration monitoring and, those types of things are absolutely something that could be contemplated as part of conditions of approval. So absolutely, we can work with the applicant and, the Land Use Commission and City Council on how we ensure that some of these concerns are addressed through that construction management plan. I would say that there's certain aspects of the construction management plan that likely could not be addressed at this stage in the development review process. So my recommendation would be to actually outline the elements that should be incorporated into that construction management plan as part of the ordinance, but not necessarily have the construction management plan as an attachment or exhibit at this time.
That sounds great. So I know, for example, we had when the labs building was going up, there was like signage at one point. So things like having signage to make sure everybody knows like the businesses are still in, still just to support them. And we can talk, more about that. What little items, which could make a big difference to our businesses, could be implemented in order to really do as little, undermine as little as possible the businesses. And I understand, I know you do want them to continue to thrive. So just thinking ahead, so we ensure that all those details are covered now before.
That's great, for sure. We're happy to do that. Sue has her.
Okay, Sue? A hand raised? Let's see, I lost.
She may have made her comment.
Okay. And then the last thing, which we didn't talk about, I think.
No, I'm unmuted.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm an owner at 522 Church and lived through the construction of the addition to the Marion, which pretty much destroyed the alley starting at Church Street. We've lived with that destruction for the last 5-6 years. It's horrible. The pitting of the alley, the way the water collects, a whole raft of things. We had to deal with the multi-ton trucks, the trucks carrying multi tons of equipment and building materials through that alley, parking in front of our building on Church Street with diesel fumes all over the place. It sounds very nice to say that you'll provide phone numbers, if there's a problem. Well, I have to tell you, there's constant problems. And we've had arguments with the drivers because they're blocking the alley. We can't access it. I can't access the driveway to get into my garage, and they refuse to move. And they are argumentative. And so having a phone number is nice. It could take a half an hour, 2 hours for somebody to respond. Meantime, people have doctor's appointments, have to get to the airport. I don't know what can be done, but it was horrendous. Now, this is not on Horizon. I put in the comments. They're building out for the nail salon in part of the building next to us. One of those construction people blocked the alley, wouldn't move. We had a resident who needed to get to the airport. A neighbor came down to try and be helpful, and the driver pulled out a gun and showed the neighbor a gun to say, see? Now, fortunately, the police were nearby and they came. They couldn't remove the gun because he had a FOID card, but that was horrendous. And as I said, we've lived, when you built the Marion, the addition, to over a year of dust and diesel fuel and destruction of the alley. And quite honestly, Claire, the fact that the city will not permit a cutout so people can pull in off of Chicago Avenue is horrendous. And now the building of the Legacy moves it even closer down toward Church Street, down toward where we have parking spots, down toward where our driveway is. I am not at all comfortable with the responses we've received about protecting the alley, about repaving the alley. Repaving, with all due respect, Jeff, 127 feet, whoop-de-doo. You know, it's that whole stretch of the alley that needs to be repaved. And imposing on us the cost of doing it when it was your building of the Marion that caused the damage seems a little bit disingenuous. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no if you want to respond to that, if not, I had a couple of questions regarding the management of the building.
In terms of response, obviously, again, we have this plan. It's going to be in writing. I think you heard Liz say we'll be able to work with the city to make sure that it's implemented, and it'll be in writing, and so we're happy to do that. And I think, again, actions speaking louder than words. After the last meeting that we went to, the community meeting 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we were, all of us gathered in the alley, and we're trying to get not only, it's not just repaving our section of the alley, it's also a commitment of big dollars for the rest of it, and we're trying to meet. But we do need the city to take the lead, and the city has expressed willingness to do so with your both council people's help and the project's help. So we'll continue to move forward with those efforts to improve that alley. Anyway, so that's it. Again, I'm sort of repeating an earlier answer, but that's okay.
Thank you. And I think the last little piece that we did talk about is just management of the building to ensure that there is, 24/7, since the loading will require somebody inside to lift the door. Like, I would want that also as part of the ordinance, just some assurance of, because I've had some issues with other buildings that have been mostly student housing, and not just because of student housing, but for a variety of issues, not having management on the premises all the time. So I would want something like that also in the ordinance in terms of management, also in terms of lighting and noise for the deck upstairs. I've had issues at the link with loud noise and loud lights. And I know you mentioned, Mike, that you would, you've been looking at the light situation to ensure that those lights aren't glaring across the street into the Fourth Ward building. So I would just want to make sure that that's all also included, and noise, also consideration of noise from that upstairs deck.
Right. Yes, we said that for sure, that yes, there will be, we can certainly put that, there's a noise ordinance, there's certainly hours that will be in operation. If somebody were to have, you can't have amplified music all night long in Evanston either. So, and there'll be bird friendly lighting, which reflects down. So all of these things are things that we would typically see as part of the plan. So, we're happy to work with you and the city to create that, so that everyone understands that there's rules and regulations and operational plan and proper management.
Great. Okay. Okay, anything else? Any other questions that I've missed? Comments, questions? Please raise your hand if I'm missing. There are a lot of comments in the chat box. This is recorded, so we'll have it uploaded onto the site.
Councilmember Kelly, there is a question around wind tunnel, and has that been looked at all?
Thank you. So I think the question is, has this been examined, the wind tunnel effect?
And a
Yeah,
building
we-
of this size, I've never seen, I don't know that there's a wind issue. Tim, are you familiar with a building of this height with any wind issues? Because I'm not.
Not at this height, no. It really shouldn't have an impact at all.
And again, we'll work with the city. The city has their design staff, their engineers, and their people that are looking at every aspect of this development, starting with the sustainability, affordable housing, construction, engineering, the alley. So whatever, obviously we're following all of the city regulations and trying to be in compliance. And if the city has something that they need us to do, we will look at that.
Okay. Paul, is your hand raised? Or is that from before, Paul?
Okay, a couple of things. I still haven't heard an answer to my question about whether a 105-foot building would be financially feasible for HRG. And the other thing I want to say is this. We keep hearing about there need to be more residents to pay more taxes. I have lived here for 48 years, and in that nearly half a century, the population of Evanston has been remarkably stable. It has never dipped below 70,000 and has never gone over 80,000. It's been in that window. Right now, it's right in the middle at about 75,000. Now, some people might see this as stagnation, but I see it as stability. We have built up downtown considerably in the last 20, 25 years, and that's fine. But there are other parts of town that offer something complementary to that. And if they are shoved out of the way to make more tall buildings that cost more money to live in, that which is unique about Evanston will eventually disappear altogether. If you want to live in a tall building, they got lots of them in Rogers Park, along the lake. You know, that's something you can get in any city. And I think 105 feet is a reasonable limit. The city thought so when it drafted the plan for downtown in 2009. Maybe people are dissatisfied with that now. Well, let them amend it and then we'll see what happens. But right now, that's what we have. And I would like to see that honored. That is all.
Thank you. There's also a question, thank you very much, a question about shadow study. I think you did speak to that maybe at the last meeting a little bit. The comment is, what about a shadow study? Did Albion do this? We don't want to lose another sunny block.
Right. Study, it's part of our application package.
Yes, and so first of all, as far as the height goes, there's a bunch of other projects that have been approved with much more significant height variations. Again, ours is 9 feet 7 inches, so that's what we're asking for as part of our application. And I'm sorry, in the shadow study, we have a shadow study, which I can share with everyone.
Yeah, I saw
So the shadow studies are done 3 times a year for the autumnal and vernal equinox are the same. So the spring and fall are the same. That's reflected in the first column. You can see, and we've done them as typical for shadow studies at 3 times during the day, 9 a.m. So let's just look at the first column going down. This is March and September, so autumn and spring. We can see the shadows cast. There was one question, and we did this actually with the church in mind because we wanted to make sure that there was no shadows ever casting into their into the courtyard. And as you can see that in the spring and fall, it doesn't. In the June, so the summer, there's very little shadow cast because the sun's more directly overhead. And then, of course, in the winter, you have longer shadows. What's interesting to note here is that the purple coloration is new shadows from our particular building because there's existing tall buildings all around us. We're much shorter than the buildings to our west. And so, Tim, am I
want to clarify that comment. What the purple represents is the incremental shadow that would be cast by the additional 10 feet that is somewhat at dispute here.
Thank you.
Gray shows what a building without a site development allowance for height would produce. And that purple, which is very little, as you could see, is what the incremental 10 feet will produce.
It's not 10 feet, it's 30 fucking feet. I'm not on my show.
Can you explain?
It's 10. This
No,
again.
the product by right, we could do 9 feet 7 inches less.
No, I'm sorry, that's assuming that we're granting the parking. So I mean, that normally it's 105, it's to 135. That's assuming
Claire, you're misstating. No.
I don't want this to go on. No, it's assuming we're granting the parking automatically giving the height. That's why it's a plan development. We can approve it or not. But so I know we're counting the 2 floors, the floor of parking towards it, but that's an assumption that we're granting that automatically. And I don't want to get into
think so. I don't think we're not assuming that at all. No, we're just saying that this building is 114 feet tall from a zoning perspective.
Okay.
So Tim, I mean, are we describing this exactly correct?
In terms of the shadows, yes.
Okay.
So the purple is the additional increment from the 9 foot or 7, let's just call it 10 feet, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so without that 10 feet, if we were at the zoning by right, could be 105 plus any parking. So that would be what's in the gray box.
That's right.
So 105 plus parking.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And the parking doesn't count towards the zoning height.
But as we can see,
right.
there's
it's not automatic. That's what I was saying in
Right.
terms of not by right. I just want to make that clear. So it's 105 versus 135. Okay. So I think there were, Paul asked twice, and I feel like I just, want to circle back since he got on twice to ask the question about the ROI, the 105 feet, which is what residents have been asking for to stay within that level with the Marion. And can you respond to his question regarding the ROI and the 105 versus 135?
So let's be clear. The only reason why this deal works financially at all is because we, number one, own the land, and we bought the land 10 years ago as a package with the land for the Marion. If I were to sell this at market value to any developer, this wouldn't work at all. And in order to get a deal capitalized, to get it financed, you have to show a certain return on the investment. No one will lend money on a deal. No one will contribute equity to a deal unless there is an expected return, which is typically 13 to 15%. There's a tremendous amount of risk associated with doing a project like this. And as that return on your investment diminishes, so does the access to debt and equity. And we're right at that Mendoza line. And we can make this work, by the skin of our teeth. Everything has to go exactly as we are our assumptions have to be spot on, and for this to work. And we're long-term holders. So we're looking this as, a legacy hold. That's what we named it, the legacy. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. We've sold 3 properties in that span. Most investors, syndications that come in, they'll develop this, they will own it for 3 to 5 years, and they'll flip it to another investor that is not local, that doesn't care what's going on in the community. We've owned the Marion for 10 years. I'm going to own this for another 20 years. My kids will hopefully own this project. And that's the only reason this deal works.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions or comments? And I thank everybody in your team for meeting again and for staying online for over 2 hours now. Please let me know if I'm missing any questions or comments. Jonathan, Liz, Mike. I guess, so if we could get, I think we're anxious to see and collaborate if need be on the alley management plan as well as the construction plan. I'm happy to also, collaborate to make sure we don't miss any details that are important for the neighbors during this process, or however this lands. So thank you all. Thank you, Councilmember Newsma, for being here also, and thank you so much, Liz, William, for joining us. I really appreciate everybody's time on this, and thank you to all the residents for your input, for your valuable input. This is how we, work together to get a project as good as we can possibly get it in collaboration. So
Thank you all very
Thank
much
you,
for your
everybody.
time. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you, everybody. Okay, good night.
Good night.
And Liz, you